Okay, hi guys. Here's the plan for this. I am going to be doing these one team at a time because my maximum YouTube upload length is 15 minutes, I'm pretty sure, and there's no way I can do all 12 teams in 15 minutes. This is going to be pretty in-depth, probably pretty long-winded, hopefully not boring. So we're going to go in draft order. I'm going to start with Scar. I'm mostly going to be using like this view where you can click on a team and it gives you kind of their team like this. But also, it's nice to look at the draft order to see, who was available when you made your picks, and we can really base, our grades on that. So, the important thing to talk about right off the bat is that Scar moved up in the draft from the 5th pick, and he swapped spots with Pastor, which really threw a wrench in my strategy because I wanted Patrick Mahomes. But it made sense for Pastor because he made it pretty clear he wanted DeAndre Hopkins at any cost. Taking D-Hop at 1.1 would have been probably not ideal. So it was beneficial for him to move backward, and it was definitely beneficial for Scar to move forward because I think Pat Mahomes is the clear optimal pick here, and he's the best player in the NFL and in our Dynasty League. I mean, this guy could be the GOAT. So 15 more years of elite production. I mean, if our league still exists at that point, I'd be surprised if he's still not starting Pat Mahomes as his QB1. So sucked for me to miss out. I doubt Pastor, even if I'd asked, would have wanted to trade spots with me at number 2 because getting D-Hop at pick number 2 still doesn't really, it doesn't give him as much value as being able to get D-Hop at number 5. I wonder how far back he could have gone back, but, we'll never know. So, yeah, Pat Mahomes, that's the optimal pick. All the research I did about Superflex Dynasty Leagues suggested that if you can get an elite quarterback in the first round, you just do it because of how valuable they are in this kind of league. So, screw you. There you go, Pat Mahomes, number 1. On the other hand, though, let's talk about your second round pick, which I think was quite a reach. Jerry Jeudy is a talented dude, super young, 21 years old. But I have multiple problems with this. Number 1, who is his quarterback? I don't think Drew Lock is the Broncos quarterback of the future. He's okay, but okay doesn't cut it really in the NFL, especially when you consider how nasty the Broncos division is now. You have to compete with Mahomes. Derek Carr's way better than Drew Lock, and now Justin Herbert looks like an animal in that division. So have fun with that. And frankly, I just don't like the prospect of having a receiver when you have no clue who his quarterback is. And in addition, I mean, they have Cortland Sutton there, who I think is probably better than Jerry Jeudy. And there were several available receivers around here that I would also rather have over Jerry Jeudy. I mean, Calvin Ridley, right here, 3.7. Not only is Calvin Ridley, I'm pretty sure literally the wide receiver 1 overall this year, but he's 25, I want to say. 25. He's got a proven quarterback. I know Matt Ryan's, getting up there in age, but he's going to be serviceable for several more years. So frankly, like, not only is Calvin Ridley a much better win now player, because again, the best wide receiver in fantasy football right now, but also I'd rather have him next year and the year after that and the year after that. In comparison, can you even is Jerry Jeudy even playable right now? His best game was 61 and a TD. Other than that, 20 yards, 32 yards, only getting like 2 receptions. Like, he's not even really a flex, and we're in a 3 wide receiver plus a flex league. So I don't agree with this pick. Maybe you're just a huge fan of the player. I don't even. Where did he go to? Alabama? Yeah. So maybe you're a huge Alabama guy, and that's cool. But yeah, I think you could have done much better. AJ Brown, I'd rather have. Good QB, well-run organization, great coach. Terry McLaurin. I mean, he doesn't have the QB and he doesn't have the well-run organization, but he, unlike Judy, has proven that he can produce like a madman despite having doo-doo trash like Dwayne Haskins thrown to him. So, yeah, not a fan of this pick. Hope, maybe it'll work out for you. We'll see. He's still certainly a valuable like dynasty prospect to have. I just don't think 2.12 was the right spot for him. Moving on, I think Hawkinson was a great pick. It was pretty clear that, obviously, with our tight end premium, that they were going to start flying off the board, and there's only 5 or 6 tight ends with any sort of promising future. So that's a good pick. And he's got his quarterback. The Detroit Lions obviously kind of stink still, but I could see Hawkinson being a great tight end for 6, 7, 8 years. Michael Thomas, incredible value at 412. He's only 27. I know Drew Brees is on his way out soon, but I think Michael Thomas is too freaking good to not produce for a long time. Probably 3 or 4 more years of being like a top 10 wide receiver, and his play style as like a big possession guy seems like it'll translate into his early 30s. So I like that pick a lot, especially given, we're kind of getting out of the running back chunk of the draft. And so he was, I think, clearly the best wide receiver, at least for win now, that was left. Moving on, Deontay Johnson's awesome. And he's got a well-run organization with a good quarterback. And, I mean, that's what you want. I know he's got some young competition. Interestingly enough, Chase Claypool went way before Deontay Johnson up here. I'm not sure if I agree with that. People might be getting the Mapletron nickname, letting it get to their head there. I mean, Chase Claypool's super talented, but Deontay Johnson is, doing just crazy things anytime he's on the field. I mean, he's getting like 14 targets and stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. So moving on, you got another nice young wide receiver prospect kind of player. CeeDee Lamb's obviously good. He's lost basically 100% of his value for this season, given the quarterback situation in Dallas. So this was not a win now pick, but I respect that you grabbed a high talent dynasty prospect like him. It'll be interesting to see how Dallas's wide receiver situation shakes up. I won't waste time looking up the contracts and stuff, but they got Gallup and Cooper as well and stuff going on there. So that'll be interesting to see. Henry Ruggs, I'm very jealous. I think he will be a Tyreek Hill-esque player in no time. He already shows huge play potential, but obviously what comes with that is just kind of he's a boom bust kind of player. If you are brave enough to start him, you could easily get 3 points, or you could get 28 points. So he's an interesting fantasy player. He's the kind of player that I think is more valuable on the field on average than he is in fantasy, because anytime he's on the field, the defense has to be abundantly aware of every route he runs. But I think fantastic value here. Looking through the kinds of receivers that were still available, I'd rather have Ruggs over Marquise Brown. I don't know if Ruggs over Allen Robinson. That's interesting. I will say that with this CeeDee Lamb pick, that I might have preferred someone like Fuller or Brown or Robinson over CeeDee Lamb, just given how many weapons are in Dallas and how CeeDee Lamb has basically no value anymore this season. But, is what it is. It's also interesting how you had 0 RB up until now, which I believe is no one else did that. Yeah, no one else did that. So I can't wait to see how that pays off for you. And moving into your next pick, you did get a serviceable RB for this season, but his dynasty value certainly dwindles by the day. And he doesn't cross me as a particularly intelligent dude. So, he might be suspended at some point this year. I think probably at this point he's in the clear. But yeah, and Philip Lindsay's going to eat into carries anytime he's healthy. So I don't know. Gordon's interesting. He's probably the best since you waited until 8-12 to grab a running back. He was probably the best immediate value you could get. No, I'd rather have Gaskins. Myles Gaskin is both a solid win now player and a pretty solid future player. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a bad pick, especially when you had no running backs up until now. You were probably like, oh crap, I better get something going here. And you followed that up with Roethlisberger, which is a great player for this year, but it'll be interesting to see how he plays in the coming years. He's definitely getting up into his late 30s. I want to say 38. Wow. Yeah, so that's... Dudes can go into their 40s, but that's still rare, all things considered. But regardless, your team has an interesting mix of, Roethlisberger's win now, Mahomes' win now. Hawkinson is definitely like a top 10 tight end, so he's pretty win now. Michael Thomas for sure is, assuming he comes back. I would definitely assume that he's coming back soon. So yeah, I think Roethlisberger's a solid pick to make your team, pretty competitive this year. And then you follow that up with Minshew in the next round. Yeah, that's pretty good, all things considered. There's like nothing left at quarterback at this point in the draft. And you did have your super flex locked up. Like, Minshew's not starting for you. And it's interesting, like, I can't wait to see what the Jaguars do. Because I think anybody would tell you that Minshew is a pretty solid player. And he could win games and lead a team. But, I mean, if Jacksonville gets the number 2 overall pick or something, and Justin Fields is there, maybe they trade back or something. We'll see. So yeah, Gardner Minshew's a kind of cute, like, I guess, bye-week fill-in for Mahomes. That's something important to think about. Something that I personally drafted around was getting quarterbacks that had my buys out of the way. I would have taken Mahomes if he was there and then planned accordingly. But once I got Lamar and Tua, I was like, okay, I don't need to worry so much about having another backup quarterback, because if you have 2 quarterbacks on bye or something in this league, I don't know what you do. You just take the L. Like, you're not going to get 2 playable quarterbacks. Literally, like, there's not going to be 2 quarterbacks that are playing on the waivers to pick up. So, yeah, that's interesting. All right, moving on. Damian Harris, he's whatever. I mean, we're at the point in the draft where it was starting to get, like, people were finding diamonds in the rough, and I kept getting shocked at picks. Like, I could not frickin' believe John Brown was still there at 20.12. But, Damian Harris is a semi-talented guy. Where was he drafted? 3rd round pick. Yeah, I don't know. It's just Patriots just don't use their running backs like other teams. Like, LeGarrette Blount was startable for a bit. He was like a TD dependent kind of guy. I don't know. I just don't see that. I don't see a universe where you're ever like, yeah, I'm starting Damian Harris. And so for that reason, I think there was actually a lot of value out there that you could have got instead. Like, I'd definitely rather have LaMichael Pirine, not because I think he's some great player, but because I think he could get used. Like, they're already starting to phase him in instead of Frank Gore, for example. And like Joshua Kelly over here. But, Austin Eckler will come back, and the Chargers situation's interesting. So, I don't know. I'm just... Avoid Patriots running backs, personally. I would vote down on this pick. You could have done better, in my book. Andy Isabella's okay. Arizona just kind of uses DeAndre Hopkins and nobody else with any level of consistency. I mean, what kind of targets is Isabella getting? I mean, I probably don't need to dig this deep into some random 13th round pick, but, you know, looking here, 4 targets max this year. He did have 2 touchdowns that game. I do remember this game, but I don't know. He's an okay pick, but if you look, you're seeing stuff like Gallup here, Sterling Shepard, some interesting names around here. AJ Green is pretty interesting. He's obviously old, but like, I don't know. Are you picking Isabella to be like a dynasty piece? At this point, I think you maybe could have gone for a more help you this year kind of pick. Mike Davis is very interesting. He looks good. And I don't know what kind of Mike Davis contract. I know he signed some kind of contract. A 2-year contract with the Bears. Hopefully, for your sake, he leaves the Panthers, because he looks like the kind of player that could get signed and be a legitimate piece for another team. And I doubt he's old. He was on, you know, he was on the Bears for a little bit. 27, okay. Yeah, that's still an interesting piece, though. And like within the next 3 years, would I be shocked to see Mike Davis be a solid option for a team? No, I would not. Marlon Mack is also interesting. Crazy that by doing the midseason draft that this is kind of what happens. If we had done the draft at the beginning of the year, Marlon Mack's probably way up more like in here, you know. So that very well might pay off for you. There were a lot of interesting players like that where it's like you're getting someone that's obvious that's not playing this year but could pay off big time in a year. So I like that. I also like Harrison Bryant. I was probably going to take him instead of Jordan Love, honestly, because I got to a point where I wanted to stockpile some tight ends. But also, there's some... I love the depth charts in Sleeper. I mean, he's got Hooper to deal with. I'm pretty sure the Browns signed Hooper to a multi-year deal. And Njoku's weird, but very talented. So, I don't know. But he's definitely had some solid, like, 77% snap percentage is good. 5 targets, 56 yards, you know, 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty cool little, like, you know, grab another young tight end after you have Hawkinson kind of locked up. So, moving a little quicker now. Gus Edwards is a pretty solid player. Actually, as a Ravens fan, I think he's great. But there's just not the kind of role there for him. I could see him showing up somewhere else and being a solid player. Nelson Aguilar has been a cool story this year. People thought he was just freaking trash on the Eagles. And to be honest, I don't know if it's because they just weren't using him right or he wasn't tight enough with Wentz or something, but he just looks great in Las Vegas. I would consider him a playable player right now. And so, honestly, 18th round pick for someone who's playable now and is only 27 and is on a good offense with a good offensive coach and a solid quarterback, those check all the boxes. In fact, I wish I don't even think I realized Nelson Aguilar was out there when I took Pascal right here. I would definitely just 1-for-1 swap Pascal for Aguilar. So, good pick there, for sure. Good find. Deshaun Jackson, he's whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if he never plays again, actually. John Brown, this is one of the craziest picks of the draft. I have no clue how he's slipped under the cracks so much. He's good. He has a good quarterback. He's 30, but I don't care. I know he's been hurt for a while this year, but he just transforms the Bills' offense when he's out there. If you compare these weeks, the Bills' offense, oh, that was ugly, to the past few weeks when he's been hurt, it's like 2 different teams, man. he's just he just runs great routes, and he's got chemistry with Allen, and he's someone I would be willing to start this year and probably next year and the year after that, even getting into his early 30s. So fantastic pick here. Robert Foster, whatever. I'm not even sure who that is. Jake Butt. He's from Michigan, I think. I think he's very talented, but he's had injury after injury after injury, and I just don't know if he'll ever really get on the field, especially on Denver. They got Noah Fant, and he's surely like their tight end of the future. So Emmanuel Sanders, cute little pick. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna get much out of him though. Alex Smith, that's cool. Trey Burton, actually, pretty solid pick. They're giving him some usage. He's been one of those players that I remember, like the fantasy footballers would hype the heck out of him, and he just never really produced. But he had a really solid week 6 for Indianapolis. So I don't know. 28, that's getting up there for tight ends. But yep, Kyle Juszczyk, he's not a fantasy player. Daniel Tomlinson, oh, that's cute. I love that. So yeah, overall, looking at this team, if I were to give my grades on here, I guess I don't know. I'll just use like a notepad or something. I'd like to do a win now grade and a future grade. For win now, I'm seeing a top 2 or 3 quarterback, a very, very solid superflex quarterback. You got Michael Thomas coming back soon. He could very well resume his position as a top 5 wide receiver. Pretty solid tight end in a 1.5 PPR league. Deontay Johnson's interesting. He gets hurt a lot. Who knows if he'll play? But if he stays on the field and keeps doing what he's been doing, you got like another wide receiver 1 here. Pretty weak at running back, especially if you lose Mike Davis soon. Not if you will. And I'm not seeing a whole lot to fill in his spot. You could throw in Gus. But if you want to win now, you might have to trade and get something at running back in there. Because you are literally going to be at Melvin Gordon, who is maybe a flex, and then nothing. So that is the big weakness we're looking at here. And then, Aguilar, playable player, in my opinion. This is a robbery of a projection. Like, he looks like he could grab a touchdown every single week. Look at this. 4 touchdowns on the year. 107 last week. In a blowout. The Raiders aren't going to get blown out very often, but if they're losing and they have a tough division, so they'll probably get crushed by the Chiefs and stuff. Like, he's going to get deep targets, so he's pretty solid. Jerry Jeudy's iffy, so yeah, for a win now grade, I'm looking at probably like a B. I do think that you could definitely make the playoffs. But I don't see a championship roster here yet. So win now grade, I'll do B. In terms of future grade, I mean, Mahomes is a huge, immediate bump up. Again, your running back future is looking really grim. You're really going to need to hope Marlon Mack comes back and is, good for wherever he goes. I don't expect him to come back to Indy if Jonathan Taylor has a good end of the season. So your future is looking similar to your win now to me, because running back is going to be miserable for you. You're going to need if your team performs pretty well and you're picking in the back half of the first round of the rookie draft, you're not going to get a good running back that way. So you're going to need to make a trade, I think. But in terms of, quarterback and wide receiver and tight end, great future outlook, but I would put it at a B. So pretty solid. There are some picks in there I definitely would contest as, not the ideal option. If we threw in Calvin Ridley here, the win now and the future go up. So, stuff like that. But overall, pretty solid draft. I like a lot of your team. I'm jealous of some of your picks like Ruggs. And yeah, nicely done. And that concludes my analysis of Scar's team.